the ISA-1 Digital, the classic Focusrite Mic Pre, and simultaneous DI. Now with class-leading stereo ADC as standard.
We're here with Avid, where Jeff's going to tell us about Pro Tools 10, where there have been a lot of big changes. The hardware's changed, the plug-in format's changed, and there are some nice new features. So where do we start?
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about Pro Tools 10. There's some pretty significant changes in this application, and I'll take you through a tour of some of those now. First one I want to take a look at is clip-based gain. And so now we have the ability to manipulate real-time clip gain in Pro Tools. So what was previously called a region in Pro Tools we're now referring to as a clip. But essentially we have the ability to manipulate from negative infinity to plus 36 dB real-time, non-destructively on any clip in Pro Tools. You can use this tiny little fader. I can do things like keyboard nudging in half a dB increments or whatever other value you'd like. I can actually come in and define a selection that I'd like to trim. I can use my mouse wheel, right, and trim that. I can also do a collection of regions, and then that curve is preserved, and I can manipulate those or scale those, right? So in addition to that, we now have real-time fades. So the fades are computed on the fly by the engine. No fade files. That means sessions load dramatically faster. It doesn't have to manage all that little media, all those little files and media. So that's also a really big deal. Along the lines of clip-based gain, we can also now translate between volume automation and clip gain. And that means copy, convert, or even coalescing. So if we do a simple example here and say basically convert volume automation into clip gain, you can see that now that is part of the clip. And one other point I want to make about this is that if we go and let's just chop off the back half of this region, if I pull that back out, that clip gain is always there. It is tied to the region. So this is a really huge feature we feel that's going to affect everybody's workflow, music, post, and the beautiful thing about it is that it leaves all of your mix automation playlists clean to once you've done the cutting to mix your piece.
But the other big thing is, of course, the caching which you have, which speeds everything up.
Disk cache is a really big deal. Yeah. So the idea is, well, one thing, we've completely rewritten the disk engine in Pro Tools, and on Pro Tools HD as well as Complete Production Toolkit, we have something called extended disk cache. And the idea is you can allocate all of the RAM in your machine minus 3 gigabytes to a RAM disk, and Pro Tools will dynamically load the audio media from your timeline into the RAM. So in this case, I've got, this machine has 24 gigs in it. I've got quite a bit allocated, but essentially what happens is Pro Tools looks at the current location of the playhead, and then it starts dynamically loading into RAM. So it first starts filling up based on where the playhead is. It starts caching the entire timeline, right? When that finishes, then it goes into the bin and it caches the entire bin. At which point you can see I have actually 2 meters, one that tells me if the timeline is cached, and then the second one says everything in the session is cached and you're only using 18% of the total RAM you've got allocated. So the result is you have incredible performance. This behaves and plays back basically like I'm playing back, 1 track, 2 tracks. I could have a session with 512 tracks, 1,000 tracks playing back, and the performance is outstanding.
So what are the big changes in the hardware? Because there's new hardware and a new plug-in format to go with the hardware.
That's true. So we've just announced a new architecture, Pro Tools HDX. This is a really big deal for us. And essentially now each HDX card is capable of 256 voices per card. We can attach up to 64 channels of I/O per card. We also have dramatically more DSP power, so up to 5 times the DSP power as compared to HDXL, card for card. So a really major leap in terms of processing power. And one other thing to mention about that that's really important is that the voice engine does not pull from that pool of DSP. So historically with HDXL, you'd have to eat up 6 DSPs just to play back full track count. Well, this is actually using an FPGA in addition to the DSPs. So to get that full track count, we don't actually have to waste any of that DSP. So tremendous amount of power. You can do obviously multiple cards. I've got 2 cards installed in this system, which allows me to play back 512 voices and have just an enormous amount of DSP capable. AAX is the format, plugin format you're referring to. That's the new format that we're announcing with Pro Tools HDX, and it's the first time that we've been able to create a format that's not only modern, but it allows us to compile the same 32-bit float process to either run on the host or on the DSP, and it's exactly the same sound. And the same algorithm, and allows you to host that process either on native or on the TI DSPs.
So I guess that in terms of legacy plugins, you can't run the older TDM ones on here, but the RTAS ones will still run.
Yeah, correct. So with Pro Tools 10 HD with HDX hardware, we feel that we do support RTAS, and obviously the vast majority of the TDM plugins out there have an RTAS equivalent. And so it's kind of a step towards getting everything to AAX, which we're working aggressively with all the third-party partners, of which we have 30 plus currently running on the platform.
Okay. And finally, I guess if someone has an existing system, you've got some kind of upgrade deal going?
We do. We have hardware exchanges from PCI HD TDM systems, PCIe HD TDM systems, HD native systems. You can outright buy an HDX system having never owned one. There's upgrades for everybody, and those upgrades actually include an exchange to our audio interfaces as well. So the first exchange is essentially on us. So if you were to, let's say you did an exchange from HD2 Excel to a single HDX card, which again is about equivalent to a 5-card system, your first interface could be exchanged to an HD Omni for free in that process.
Okay. And in terms of availability, Pro Tools 10 is shipping now?
Pro Tools 10 and Pro Tools 10 HD is shipping right now, and we anticipate that HDX will ship around December.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.